Hi everybody, welcome to your Uranus in Gemini horoscopes. We are finally here. We made it to Uranus's ingress into Gemini, a sign ruled by Mercury, the sign that actually Uranus was in when it was discovered as a planet. So extra exciting. Uranus is being very Uranus, it takes on the symbolism of things that were going on around the time that it was discovered. And I need to check the year on that, but I know that it was discovered when Uranus was in Gemini. And so now, as we move into this next kind of 8-year period because of retrogrades, but really it's going to be Uranus will be in Gemini for about 7 years, like it was in the sign of Taurus for about 7 years since 2018. We are really going to get to know Uranus. It will be Uranusing. I'm using a lot of technical language here that's not in the dictionary. Uranusing, not a real word. It will be doing that over the next 8 years. So we're really going to get to know Uranus. So if Uranus is strong in your birth chart, if you have it conjunct a natal planet like the moon or the sun, for example, or conjunct the ascendant, then Uranus is very personal to you and it's going to be popping off, and you're really going to be learning about your own unique relationship with Uranus. And the idea of horoscopes is that I would suggest that you listen for your rising sign. If you don't know what your rising sign is, but you would like to find out, you can check on astro.com. And what's required for knowing your rising sign is your time of birth, date of birth, and location of birth, because this is going to set up the houses for you, which sets up the rising sign. You can listen for your sun or moon, but if you listen for your rising sign, it's going to put you the transit of Uranus in Gemini into the right life area for you. So it's going to show you where in your life you're going to be experiencing these upgrades, this kind of elevation, the sudden curveball energy of Uranus. And a quick note on the journey that we've been through. Uranus was in Taurus since May of 2018. So a really great way to work with the current planetary energies is to do some reflection work, some journaling perhaps, some email searches, some photo searches on your phone. Look back. If you keep a diary, then brilliant, read back through there and see what has taken place since 2018 in the Taurus house of your birth chart. So again, the idea of the houses being the life areas. Which life area has had this energy of revolution and shake-up and destabilization since 2018? What are the lessons that you've learned? What are the unique insights that have come to you through the destabilizing experiences? Sometimes Uranus, particularly in the sign of Taurus, where it has been for 7 years, it's felt very challenging, possibly more so than it will do in Gemini, because Uranus loves the idea of being in Gemini. Like I said, it was discovered in the sign of Gemini. It's quite comfortable with Gemini, very flowing energy. But in the sign of Taurus, Taurus is fixed earth, which means in the fixed houses, the fixed zodiac signs being Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius. Is that all of them? Scorpio. There we go. Never forget Scorpio. These are the zodiac signs where we don't like to experience change. This is where we like things to stay the same. And those zodiac signs will govern 4 of the different houses in your birth chart, or 4 of the different life areas. So these will be life areas where you don't really like change very much. If you have got Uranus in Scorpio, then you have just come out of your Uranus opposition. You may have a final section to that Uranus opposition, particularly if you've got Uranus in the very final kind of 3 degrees of Scorpio, as we've got a retrograde from Uranus in Gemini going back into the sign of Taurus. I'll get onto those dates in a minute. But yes, Uranus to you will have been like a big kind of story over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. And it's typically known when we get that Uranus opposition transit, which we all experience in our kind of early 40s, late 30s sometimes. You typically experience this energy of wake up and this kind of like wake up and shake up, it's like, it sounds like a shower gel, doesn't it? It's like, where in life do you feel like you need to take control of your own experiences? Where in life do you feel like, time is running out, and there's this urgency to kind of just break the mold, do it your own way? A lot of people kind of go self-employed, or they might kind of suddenly go from wanting to have children to never wanting to have children, or going from living in one country to living in another country, one country for the entirety of their lives, and then suddenly they move. Especially if you've got something like Uranus in the 9th house, perhaps moving abroad was always going to be this part of your life, but you had to wait until that big transit in the sky to activate that part of your life story. And that's the amazing thing about astrology, isn't it, is that we can track these previous cycles to the current cycles and kind of learn how we might start to anticipate what might be up ahead. And whilst we can never completely predict what might be up ahead, the great thing is that we can look at the life areas and we can start to kind of untangle some of the information to get a rough idea. But Uranus does not like to be predicted. Uranus does not want to be at all reliable. And so predicting Uranus is always going to be a bit crazy and a bit curveball, but we can definitely see which life area is going to be activated by this lack of predictability in a very kind of predictable way. So I'm just going to roughly go through the dates with you, and then we'll jump into the horoscopes. Right. And so it was May 2000. I've got my notes here. May 2018, Uranus moved into Taurus, fixed Earth. And we have seen since this time in the mundane astrology, which is the kind of global social events, cultural events that we live through, that there's been a big shake-up in kind of farming and agriculture and food sourcing, whether or not you agree with any technological advancements in this area. It's impossible to kind of say that these innovations have not taken place. And perhaps on a more natal level, looking at whichever house in your birth chart is Taurus, that has given you your own technological advancements or kind of mentally insightful advancements around things that are stable and secure to us, like food, nourishment, our material things that we like to have around, our clothes, our shoes, our furniture, whether or not we have access to nature. That's a really strong thing for Taurus. And yes, Uranus has been in that sign since May of 2018. And then today, as I record this, the 7th of July, Uranus has just moved into Gemini, 0 degrees of Gemini. So if you have any planets or angles like the ascendant, descendant, MCIC at 0 degrees of Gemini, this is super personal to you and you will be feeling it straight away. It's high mental energy as well. In modern astrology, we refer to Uranus as being the higher octave of Mercury. So when we think of Mercury, that's communications, it's mind, it's thinking, it's sharing ideas, conversation, texting, WhatsApping, emails, transportation, getting around, zipping about our local neighborhood. And it could be disruptions with those things. And so I always think Uranus can be kind of a little bit migraine-y energy at time, being extra sensitive to light codes and things like sort of coming into our eyes. Like the sun is beaming through my window as I say this, not that you can really see that, and light is information, isn't it? It's universal. Sorry, it is information coming into our physical bodies. That's quite a Taurus thing. The moon, which is body, is exalted in the sign of Taurus, and so it is the sunlight coming into our eyes, delivering information to our bodies. And when that sunlight feels particularly strong and even brighter than ever before, which is exactly how me and a lot of people have been experiencing the sun over the last few years, very much so, definitely over the last 3 or 4 years, the light energy has been so strong. And again, it can be the light levels in the opposite, in the reverse as well. So it can be darkness levels as well. And what is the information is that information saying to you? Is it delivering information to you, or does it just feel like it hurts your eyes and you've got a migraine? But what is it if you take yourself into that space of the migraine and you have to rest and retreat? What is it that comes through to you in those moments of rest and retreat, for example, where you have to sit in the stillness of Taurus to really experience slow, steady, what are the messages I'm receiving from nature, from solid earth nature, Taurus? Okay. Yes, so today Uranus has moved into Gemini. On the 6th of September this year, Uranus is going to go retrograde at 1 degree and 27 minutes of Gemini. So again, if you have any planets or points around 0 to kind of 4 degrees of Gemini or the other mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, then this one's going to be particularly personal to you. Again, check the house location of those zodiac signs in your birth chart to see which life areas are going to be activated by this Uranian great awakening energy. Where have we got to? 8th of November this year, Uranus will move back into Taurus. So that will be a shift again, this kind of solid shift. So we're going to move from Uranus being more comfortable in mutable air, Gemini, ruled by Mercury. So if Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, as we know in modern astrology, that is a common idea that astrologers agree upon, then you know, Mercury and Gemini is going to love Uranus. Uranus is going to love Gemini. Whereas Uranus in Taurus has been a little bit more destabilizing. Why is that the only word I can think of? Destabilizing. It has shaken the ground beneath us. It's taken things that we like to be solid and unchangeable, and it's made them changeable and fluid, whether we like it or not. But always important to remember about Uranus is that ultimately it is for the greater good, and that is in our individual lives as well. And the one thing I will say about Uranus transits is typically in the moment of a Uranus transit, a strong conjunction or opposition or square from Uranus, there can be this feeling of like, why me? Why is this happening? This is so unfair, particularly in the sign of Taurus, because it doesn't want that change. But weeks or maybe months or years down the line, we can see with that kind of broader vision why, and that kind of sense of perspective that we get after spending some time away from the actual lived event, that this thing needed to happen for a certain reason. I needed to feel really solid in this this life experience, to know that I really wanted that thing, for example, or I needed to know that actually that thing really wasn't for me because it's not aligned with what my soul is actually saying to me, what the community, what messages that I'm actually receiving from my body. Moon exalted in the sign of Taurus, body. Okay. And then Uranus is going to go all the way back to 27 degrees and 27 minutes, 27 of Taurus, where it will go direct at that point on the 4th of February next year, 2026. And then it will re-enter Gemini finally for a 7-year period on the 26th of April, 2026 at 0 degrees of Gemini. So 0 degrees of Gemini back to 27 degrees of Taurus up to 0 degrees of Gemini again is a whole story that we're going to be playing out over the coming months. Where are we now? We're July this year. For about 8 months or so, we've got this story of Uranus going on. And obviously, we're not always going to feel like Uranus is totally active in our life experiences and our own natal birth charts, because we have other transits going on all of the time as well, and the kind of activation of the moon every 2.5 days, changing sign and things like this. But at those key dates are really when Uranus is going to be kind of speaking kind of loudly, so you can take a note of those, write them down on your on your phone's diary, planner, whatever, and just kind of pay attention to what your experience is, particularly if you are in like a perfection year that involves your natal Uranus, or if Uranus is activated for you again by opposition. So if you've got natal Uranus and Sagittarius, you're now entering your Uranus opposition transit. If your natal Uranus is in those early degrees of Sagittarius. So yes, anyway, I will get to the horoscopes, but I wanted to do a nice intro there. And if anybody would like to book a natal chart reading, just head to my website. I'll put the link down below, freyastrology.com, where I do one-to-one birth chart readings. And I'm also offering intuitive readings now as well, which is kind of tarot and oracle cards and any messages that might want to come in. So I'm going to have a bit of fun with this, because sometimes when you're doing horoscopes on your own, as any astrologer might know, it can get a little bit monotonous, and it's quite a big undertaking to do 12 in a row. So I'm actually going to mix this up, and I'm going to do them in a slightly different order today. So we're going to start off with Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces because, and there is a reason for this, because for these rising signs or ascendant signs, you will be experiencing Uranus in Gemini in one of your angular houses. The angular houses are 1, 4, 7, and 10. And whenever we get a transit on the angular houses, they tend to speak more loudly because these angular houses in our birth charts are kind of like if you took your birth chart on a kind of silk scarf and you pinned it up onto the sky, literally with like drawing pins, you would put the drawing pins in those 4 angles, and therefore there is kind of more tension there. There's this real kind of anchoring point there, and it really speaks loudly to these very kind of dynamic parts of our birth chart. So without further ado, we are going to go for Gemini. Okay, so I've just remembered timestamps. I'm going to have to do this afterwards. I wish there was a way. Someone's told me that you can do this with AI, but I haven't figured out how to do it yet. And I'm sure that's part of my Uranus and Gemini story over the next 7 years. Yes, I'm going to have to do the old-fashioned way for today. So Gemini risings, Uranus is going to be in your first house of self, of body, of psychology. It is, imagine this is your front door to the world. If you are an entire house, then your first house is your front door. And obviously there's lots of rooms inside which relate to the other houses, but the front door is like your own personal marketing system. I mean, Gemini is a natural marketeer anyway. And imagine, you know, how is your front door adorned? Does it want the redecorating? Have you kept it? I mean, I can't imagine this would be true for any Gemini risings, but have you kept it in the same kind of style for the last however many years? And then suddenly Uranus comes along and says, I want to wake up and shake up. Is that shower gel again? I want to wake up and shake up the decoration of my front door. Or in astrological terms, first house, my front door is my body. It's my hair, it's my face, it's the way that I appear to other people, it's my clothes. It's even my kind of, you know, if you imagine going to a party and you meet somebody for the first time, it's my introduction style, you know, it's my like elevator pitch almost. I mean, that's bordering kind of more into the 10th house of like career and success, but it's first time you meet somebody. If you had to give an elevator pitch, how would you do that? And Gemini in your first house, this really is going to be the time over the next 7 years of kind of how you learn to do that elevator pitch. And that perhaps that you don't like to be considered, like you don't like to be known as somebody who is predictable. You don't like to be known as somebody who, who can like, you don't want people guessing like what kind of person you are, because Uranus in your first house is like, I'm nothing like that. Even if you're exactly like that, you don't want to appear like that. This is going to be high mental energy. A lot of Gemini risings do experience a lot of high mental energy, much like a Mars in Gemini might. And therefore, I would say grounding is going to be a key element. You always want to ground some of that mental information that is coming through. It's a very inspiring time, a very enlightening time, but grounding is actually going to be really important. And particularly as we move into the retrogrades and Uranus goes back into the sign of Taurus, which it's going to do on the 8th of November. And then you're going to, you know, really see the benefits of that grounding as it moves back into your 8th house, but it's going to move into a more subconscious space, as opposed to a more clear and obvious and outward space. And perhaps you're coming to terms with understanding your own ability to, you know, like I said, it's the great awakener. And isn't it that Uranus is represented by Prometheus, and he stole fire from the gods on Mount Olympus? Is that right? Have I got that that mythology right? You know, perhaps Geminis, this is bringing in some information around where are you too hasty? Where do you steal and trick and manipulate situations so that you can steal fire all too easily? But then are you responsible with that fire, or do you let it sort of go out and burn things? And in your first house, it's going to be burning yourself. So perhaps you're paying attention to how you respond to unexpected information and how you process that unexpected information so that it doesn't kind of burn the people around you, and it also doesn't burn yourself. That is definitely going to be part of the alchemy of the next 7 years. and also Gemini risings. I am for all the mutable zodiac rising signs, the first four, Gemini, Virgo, Sag and Pisces. I'm going to pull you a card just as a little kind of extra clarifier, because like I said, these are in Uranus is in your angular houses, so it's speaking more loudly. Okay, and for Geminis, this is personal power. So this really ties in with this idea of Prometheus and stealing fire from the gods, and then what you're going to do with that fire. You have to be careful with fire. It can burn you and it can burn people around you. So how are you going to use that fire in this very kind of responsible way, or are you going to just let it rip, in which case there are consequences to that too. There's something here about personal creativity as well, that actually if you just let fire run through personal creativity, that could actually be really exciting, I need to slow down, an inspiring time for your self-discovery. I encourage you to be the master of your own destiny. Personal power. Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's a powerful one. Okay, so that's it for Geminis. And now we're going to move into Virgo. Virgo, this is going into your 10th house, Uranus in Gemini, moving into your 10th house of career, things that you are known for, your greatest kind of achievements in life that are seen in a very kind of public way. This isn't a private place. This is very kind of out there in the world. What is your reputation? How do you use communication in your work life? That could be a big thing. If you don't use communication in your work life, I can't imagine that over the next 7 years you won't start using communication of some sort in your work life. And this doesn't have to be in the traditional sense that you're sitting in a call center and you're sharing information with people kind of reading from a script, because that could feel particularly boring. Although Virgo risings, you would be amazing at this, as much like Gemini, Mercury is your chart ruler. And so this is Uranus in the sign of Mercury. So for Gemini and Virgo, actually Mercury, it's a very comfortable space. It's a very powerful space, but you're going to get bored easily. So you're going to want to be communicating messages and information around something that you really care about, and in some way tying that into your work and your career and how you're seen in the world. This is paid or unpaid work. This is also parenting as well. Parenting is a very 10th house thing. And, perhaps, you're sharing your age-old wisdom about what it is to be a parent, and what it is to kind of come out the other side of all the kind of very challenging bits and really start to enjoy it. It's almost like writing a book about motherhood or writing a book about breastfeeding and then kind of sharing it with the world. That would be, if it's something that you feel really passionately about, then I think Uranus is bringing in some excellent inspiration for creative projects like that, for example, like writing a book, or for writing poetry, or something to do with being a musician. That I could really see that with Virgo rising right now. Uranus comes along and suddenly shakes things up and says, like, hey, you're in a band, like, let's quit the day job, let's go and be in a band, let's travel the world, let's go on tour. It's that kind of energy. It's exciting. You're going to want to think about, again, back to the idea of Gemini risings and, Prometheus and stealing fire from the gods. How do you channel that fire into projects that you're passionate about, that you are recognized for, like work, for example, so that creativity can reach everybody that it needs to reach? It's almost like having a busy kind of social network like Instagram, for example, and it's like making sure that your creativity reaches the intended sort of, what's the word, like your intended audience. Like, who do you want to reach with your message? And Uranus comes along and helps you kind of land in with those people, and so that your people find you and you find your people. It's that kind of energy. This could be career changes, absolutely. This could be moving more into working with technology, so that ties in with the idea of social media, for example, Instagram. But yes, working with technology, perhaps working with intuitive messages and receiving some sort of recognition for that and success. And also, you know, astrology and esoteric things. You know, Uranus is very connected to astrology, and suddenly it's very mathematical astrology. As much as it is a divination, it's also a mathematical science, and it's about you know, potentially building a relationship with that mathematical equation of astrology, to really nourish yourself and to kind of provide the world with something else as well. So if it's something that you are wanting to learn about, then over the next 7 years, it's a great time to kind of undertake a period of study, for example. Okay, Virgos, we are going to pull you a card and see what we can find. Oh, we've got one of the green ones. This is the bison totem. Beautiful card, beautiful animal, very grounded. Virgo risings, you want to stay grounded. You know, it's an earth sign. It's a great way of marrying up high electrical mental energy with the earth and kind of staying with the earth, but delivering out earth's messages to other people. You know, and that can be literally like, you know, farming and delivering your produce to people, or it can be the ancient energies of the earth, you know, sitting in stone circles and really feeling into, okay, what are the messages from the earth telling me, and what are the messages that need to go out to other people that I need to share with other people. I could really see that, you know, sitting in stone circles, sitting in caves, being in the woods, and just really connecting to nature. And it says here, life is showering you with its abundance. So it feels like a successful time, a period of time that is upgrading and moving you on from being the student when Uranus was in your 9th house, now into being the kind of the master of your craft and sharing that out with the world. So that is Virgo rising. Okay, Sagittarius rising. Uranus in Gemini is moving into your 7th house of one-to-one relationships. This is where marriage can exist, but also where close one-to-one relationships can exist, like best friends, a family member that you get on really well with, somebody that you communicate with on a regular basis. I'm getting really warm. I'm just going to have to lift my hair up. And it also means that Uranus is kind of opposing your ascendant at some point over the next 7 years, which is like what behaviors, what activities are feeding into the wellness of your body and your mind and your soul, and what behaviors just don't kind of sit right anymore, what behaviors perhaps need to be gotten rid of. I mean, gotten rid of is more of a kind of Pluto energy, but Uranus opposing your ascendant over the next 7 years, depending on if you're 0 degrees of Sagittarius, then it's going to be opposing your ascendant now. And if you're 29 degrees of Sagittarius ascendant, it's going to be opposing your ascendant in, you know, 6.5 years time, for example. Then it's like, what are the messages coming in that you're viewing from this friendship, this special friendship that you have, or perhaps a relationship that you have, or a therapist that you have? What are the divine insights that are actually coming at you from that particular relationship? What is your therapist saying to you that perhaps resonates now that hasn't resonated before? It is a great period of time for Sag risings to go into a period of therapy, of self-exploration, of learning about tuning into your own relationship with freedom. I mean, Sagittarius rising is a big freedom lover anyway. And then with Uranus opposing your ascendant, there's a balance here between how much freedom do I need, like in reality, and how much kind of commitment do I need and closeness to other people. And this, with the idea of Prometheus stealing the fire from the gods on Mount Olympus, you know, how much of your own fire do you share out in your close personal relationships? And do you use that fire wisely and share it in a very creative way? I mean, Sagittarius rising is known as being quite kind of jovial and jubilant and celebratory, but there are times where Sagittarius rising can get a little bit kind of dogmatic and a little bit kind of so caught up in their own ways of thinking that, you know, it can end up sounding a bit like, you know, a dog barking for no reason. And, you know, sometimes Uranus is there to say to us, like, you know, slow it down, learn to channel your fire energy, learn to channel this these unique insights that are coming through around love and relationships, these unique insights that are teaching you something about yourself via the expression of being in a relationship with another divine human being. So Sag rising. I'm feeling a bit slippery, these cards. I'm not gonna lie. Let's grab you a card and see what comes up. Authenticity. Such a Sagittarius card. I love this. Authenticity for Sag rising. I open the way of truth. Oh my God, Sagittarius. It's all about truth. It's about what are the truths about this universe, about this life that we live in. And Uranus comes along and suddenly brings in these experiences, brings in new relationships potentially as well, or suddenly makes us feel like we don't have freedom in the relationship we're currently in, or that we want more freedom in that relationship. And it's about staying authentic to yourself, opening that way of truth. I want to say easing into it, but Uranus doesn't necessarily like us to ease into anything. So perhaps it's this idea of staying open to the flexibility of relationships. It's almost like, it makes me think that when you're in a solid relationship and then suddenly you have this need to have more freedom, perhaps you want to feel more authentic in your own life experience, and it's feeding into your own physical well-being as well, in that first house of Sagittarius and body, that perhaps you invite in a polyamorous relationship because your energy needs to be divided amongst other people. Perhaps that is this idea of Prometheus and the fire. You need to share that fire. Excuse my phone alarm. You need to share that fire with more than one person. And actually, if you're authentic to yourself, perhaps more than one person is the way forward. It's not to say that all Sagittarius risings are going to go into a polyamorous relationship, but it just could be one of the ways that Uranus shows up. Also, very enlightening and quirky conversations, technological conversations with your partner as well. I could see Sagittarius risings being the first people that have a relationship with a robot, you know, like an AI girlfriend, an AI boyfriend, an AI partner, because Uranus has that connection to technology, and the 7th house is the house of partner. So there you go. Here's a bit of a curveball one for you. Okay. I was going to tick these off as I went so that I don't get lost. Okay, we're going to move into Pisces rising. Okay, Pisces. You've had a card jump out already. Let's show you that. Oh, look. Before we even get there, I'll pull you another one. And an unconditional love. I remind you of the magic of love. You are blessed. I mean, Pisces, do we need to carry on? That's a lovely one. Unconditional love, very Pisces. So it's such a nice relieving energy as well, after Saturn's been in Pisces for the last, in your first house for the last 3 years. It's really nice to just remember that love and connection can be a really beautiful thing. It doesn't just have to be something that is testing you and bringing up this idea of boundaries and trying to figure things out and just feeling a bit kind of enclosed within yourself. It's an expansive, opportunity rich time. Sorry. Yeah, so Pisces, Uranus is going to move into your 4th house of home, roots, family. It's very connected to the home that you live in as well, kind of, houses. What is the word? What's the word for in the UK? I want to say real estate, but I've been watching too many American programs. Whatever that's called in the UK, buying and selling houses. This could be something that comes up in your life. You know, Uranus in the 4th house could be a sudden shift to buying and selling houses on the internet, because it's connecting that energy. But actually, really, for Pisces rising, I think this one in your Uranus in your 4th house is going to be very connected to the 4th house. Can be the skeletons in the closet as well. This is family secrets. This is really, really private. Sometimes I think the 4th house is more private than any of the other houses in the birth chart. It's right at the bottom. It's underneath the horizon in the birth chart. I mean, it's right at the bottom of the birth chart. And it's something that we keep out of view. And so it's like, what are the unique messages that are trying to show themselves to you? And when I say that, I mean, like, what are the unique messages that come to you through family connections dating back lifetimes? So yes, it can be your family that you are with in this lifetime, but it can also be like sudden rememberings around tribal families that you've had in previous lifetimes. Perhaps it's like a past life regression kind of energy. Perhaps it is sharing any kind of oracular skills that you've learned in your lifetime that have been passed on to you from other family members. And like I said, it doesn't have to be family members in this lifetime. This can be family members from way back, centuries ago. And how do you deliver those messages? Perhaps you decide that you're going to do natal charts for all of your family as well. That is another like Uranus in the fourth house kind of thing, marries up this idea of astrology in the fourth house of family and home. And perhaps you decide to have all of those birth charts in a tree shape. The birth charts make the canopy of the tree, and perhaps you make the trunk as well. Oh my god, I feel like this is really tying in with unconditional love again. Whether you have a good relationship with your family or not, like I say, it's connecting to family energies that feel good and wholesome and nourishing and loving. And if those familial connections existed in previous lifetimes, then perhaps work on this idea of doing some past life regressions, for example, or meditating on the idea of where did your family come from. Perhaps you've got connections overseas. Perhaps there's particular places in the world that you really want to visit. Check out your astrocartography as well, because that could give you some hints as to which parts of the world you feel connected to on a kind of astrological level, but it also can bring up this kind of spiritual connection. And the fourth house can be kind of fascinated by the mysteries of life, and it isn't scared to look at some of those mysteries. It's like, look at the spiritual things, look at this relationship between life and death, and how we exist as groups here on this earth, like tribes, is what I mean there. And also, perhaps you want to let's make it a bit more kind of tangible. Perhaps you are thinking about ideas that you want to do with your home. Perhaps you're installing a lot of new technology over the next 7 years. Perhaps I shared on Instagram recently that I don't even have an Alexa at the moment. I'm a bit old school. But perhaps you start to bring in an Alexa. You decide to bring in an automatic vacuum cleaner that you just program, and then it does its thing at the same time every day or every week or whatever, and technology starts to assist you in the home. That is a nice one for Pisces rising. Okay, let's just that unconditional love one. I really don't feel like we can kind of top that, but it did jump out of the pack, so I felt like I had to say it. Okay, sisterhood. Oh, I love this for tribe and fourth house. Initiate a new sister's adventure. This sounds like finding your own tribe in this lifetime now in 2025 and connecting in a spiritual way to that group. I mean, it's beautiful. I don't feel like we need to go any further than that. I just think that's amazing. Get that group together, Pisces. Okay, let me tick that one off. Right, and now we're going to jump around a bit. Okay, so Aries, and I'm going to leave the cards now, I'm afraid. So you're going to have to wait until the next horoscopes to see if the current transit is angular, then you might get a card pull. Yes, so Aries rising, Uranus in Gemini is going to be in your third house. This is very illuminating, very mentally stimulating. The third house of communications, learning, sharing ideas, really gathering information. The next 7 years are going to be mentally really busy for you. If you're studying for something, then you might be undertaking that period of study now. If you are it's also connected to local neighborhood and forms of transport. So if you're traveling around your local neighborhood, think about new ways. It's almost like getting an electric bike and starting to explore your local neighborhood a bit more, because you've got that extra bit of energy in the tank in forms of electricity to help zip you around, so you can get out more and explore a bit further than you might be able to with just your legs in action. It's also the house of siblings, so there could be some really inspiring, illuminating conversations shared with siblings over the coming years, and it will again be this idea of like, you know, where Aries rising, very passionate, ruled by Mars, and it's a fire sign, a cardinal fire sign. So cardinal fire, you're going to have to be extra considerate about how you're sharing your fire with those people around you. And what I love about this is the idea that if you are wanting to share information with people, if you want to go public and be teaching online, or, you know, whatever it is that you're working on, then you will be sharing in a really passionate, inspiring way where other people can hear you and other people can actually upgrade themselves through the information that you're sharing. And don't feel worried about the end result. You know, don't worry about making a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that. You know, if it's just if you have to, then do it. But, you know, if you have autonomy over doing your own presentation, just share from your heart, share from your sense of passion and enthusiasm, because it will be amazing how much you connect to those people around you when you do that. Taurus rising, Uranus in Gemini, I nearly said Taurus there, is going to be in your second house of personal resources, material stability, and your sense of self-worth. It's the kind of clothes you like to wear, it's the kind of foods that you like to eat. There could be a real shake-up in terms of your own financial makeup over the next 7 years. Perhaps you know, play the stock market or something and you can kind of see your finances doing this. I imagine that would be you know, like a high risk game to play over the next 7 years. I don't know anything about stock markets, it was just a visual that kind of came through. And perhaps communications and using divine information coming through, like in the form of psychic energy, you know, mediumship, for example. Perhaps that kind of work is going to steer your material resources over the next 7 years. Perhaps that kind of things, perhaps it's been something that you do as a hobby, you know, divining information has been a hobby of yours, and now perhaps you want to make that into something that actually supports your material reality over the next 7 years. And just be aware as well that when Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, it will be in your first house again. So we're finishing up Taurus rising, we're finishing up this story that is going on with your own body, your sense of self, your front door that we talked about in the Gemini risings horoscopes. Your front door is nearly complete. It's nearly undergone a complete transformation. It's had masses of upgrades over the last 7 years. And when we do the retrograde, which is 8th of November, Uranus is back into Taurus until the 26th of April 2026. That is the final flourishes, you know, that is the final bauble on the door knocker, or, you know, oh, what are those bay headbands in Greek mythology? I'm imagining like bay around your doorway like that. Oh, lovely. So yeah, personal resources and self-worth for Taurus risings. Okay, now we're on to Cancer. So Cancer risings, Uranus in Taurus Uranus in Gemini is going to be in your 12th house. This is the house of the subconscious. It's also the house of spirituality and the things that come up when we have the time to rest and recognize them. When you have a Mercury ruled 12th house, there is a lot of energy that can come into you, and if you are particularly sensitive, if you've got a lot of water in your birth chart and you're quite sensitive to other people's energies, then this is going to be a 7-year period of time where you're going to want to learn about, you know, protecting your own energy, allowing messages to come through that you feel are safe and intended, and not allowing the messages to come through that feel you know, negative or work, you know, against your own sense of self-worth. Mental health could be a big thing over the next 7 years, and really leaning into your personal practices that help support and nourish and nurture your own mental health. And this will be masses of insights coming in, you know, from collective consciousness, from universal energy. So keep a notebook at hand. Dreams could be particularly powerful over the next 7 years. Maybe keep a note of those, because there is unique information coming into you over the next 7 years from Uranus in Gemini. Okay, I've got to get my kids from school very soon, so we're going to try and power through, get these finished. Leo risings, Uranus and Gemini is going to be in your 11th house of community spaces, friendship groups. This is actually a really positive house in terms of, you know, people that just turn up in your life that want to help you out. It's quite a beneficial house. I was to say household, but it kind of is a household if you're in a group, you know, if you've got a community. That's the other thing, you know, it could also be joining, you know, like, what is that, you know, in the film The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, joining a community that is kind of self-sufficient, and it is all about an ideal way of living and shared resources. Yes, this will be about receiving divine insights from your friendship groups, seeing where friendships are still working and seeing where new friendships might be coming in. It's a very exciting time to expand your friendship circle. If you're a Leo rising, you know, Uranus in Gemini, it's very playful, it's very open, it's very charming. And I can see a lot of that energy moving towards you over the next 7 years. Okay, Libra rising, Uranus and Gemini is going into your 9th house of higher learning, long distance travel, astrology, spirituality. This is a real awakening time in terms of if you're really wanting to get into studying something or teaching something, even if you want to teach some Uranian things like AI computing, for example, then this would be an ideal time. Perhaps you are finishing up your studies in that area. Perhaps you're using social media or technology to really hone your study skills and get the last bits of your training done before, you know, Uranus moves into Cancer, and that'll be in your 10th house of career in 7 years' time. So it could be a deep period of study with very inspiring, unique thoughts coming at you. And it's doing it your own way. It's not necessarily having to go down the traditional kind of, you know, high school, college, university route that people in the UK can take. But it's like building up your own course, teaching yourself. You are your own teacher, and you can really provide yourself with some unique insights that you just never would get from a very traditional you know, classroom learning style. It could also be like moving abroad. It could be fascinating people coming into your life that are from abroad, or connecting with fascinating people abroad via the internet, for example. Okay, we've got 3 to go. We can do this. Scorpio rising, Uranus. Oh, that was a car beeping. Uranus and Gemini will be moving into your 8th house of other people's resources. This is also the house of sex and birth and death and transitional spaces. That's not to say that lots of people will be passing through those transitional spaces, but you might just become a lot more aware of what that transition really means to you. And you might even have some divine downloads about what it really is to be alive in this lifetime, and how precious life can be, and this sense of the sense of time and how it moves on, and that there is kind of magic and unique messages to come through from all of it, from the myriad of life experience, not just all the good stuff and not just all the bad stuff. Scorpio rising is very aware of being authentic and keeping it real, and with Uranus in your 8th house, that can definitely be a 7-year period of time where you are urged to keep things real, and you know, there could be sudden inheritances or sudden shared, you know, this, the 8th house can be kind of you know, soul commitments in this lifetime. So it could be someone new coming in to share soul commitments, or it could be even going through kind of therapy and reflecting back on experiences where you kind of honor and are kind of thankful for those shared experiences you've had with someone else in your life, even if they are not a kind of current partner in this lifetime. So some real healing taking place actually for Scorpios, and yeah, and the people that they've shared their energy with in their lifetime. Okay, I'm checking the time everywhere because I'm like, can't be late for school. Okay, Capricorn risings, you have got Uranus in Gemini, moving into your 6th house of health, daily routines. This is a very kind of This is a house where we like to have strategy and order, and with Uranus there, it likes to shake that up. So Capricorn risings, you're ruled by Saturn. Perhaps you like your strategy and your order and your daily comforts and knowing where everything is and the sense of order. But Uranus comes along to your 6th house and says, let's throw it all out. Let's find some new ways of ordering things, because actually this has gotten stagnant and stale. And we want to kind of illuminate you and make you feel really good about yourself. Perhaps you decide to take on some kind of technological form of working out in the 6th house. Perhaps you decide to upgrade your nutrition, big thing with Uranus in Gemini. Perhaps you decide to teach exercise classes online to other people. That would be quite a Uranus in Gemini thing in the 6th house. But yeah, looking after your health and your well-being, and it will be about alchemizing. That's the word. Alchemizing that fire that we talked about earlier with Prometheus and the stealing it from the gods on Mount Olympus. Alchemizing that fire and knowing how much fire to keep for yourself and how much fire you need to expel from your body, because perhaps it builds up quite quickly and you want to move some of that fire energy out of your body, like hot yoga or Tai Chi or something that really gets the muscles activated to the point where they kind of feel like they're burning, but then you go beyond that burning sensation, almost like hitting a wall in a marathon. You go beyond the burn and then you kind of reach some sort of nirvana that kind of comes from beyond that. I'm not a health professional, by the way, so before you do any exercise, please check with your your doctors, your actual health professionals, but it's that kind of thing. Okay, and then finally, Aquarius rising. I mean, I love this because you're in modern astrology, you're ruled by Uranus anyway. So this is quite personal to you. And Uranus in Gemini is coming along to shake up your house of fun and creativity and joy and children and kind of playfulness. And that is going to be in your 5th house. So Aquariuses, expect to find brand new hobbies, expect to maybe take up astrology. Uranus in the 5th house, it could be something that you really just do for fun. It's not about finances, it's about fun. It's not about building businesses, it's just about fun and really embodying that fun. Pluto in your 1st house, you know where to be serious, you know where you've got to do the hard work, you know where you need to do the transformations and the kind of resurrections. That's a very personal story that's going on in your life at the moment. And in the 5th house, Uranus comes along and it's like, this is where you can have your playtime, have fun with the mind, have fun with sharing information, have fun with learning and teaching and reading and gathering information, and get more social. I think we lived in a period of time, we're in 2025 now. It's only 5 years ago we were in a pandemic and everything was a bit weird, and we really kind of had to lock down from those social experiences. But now we're fully back, and it's okay to kind of get out, and it's okay to share in social spaces. It's okay to take up a hobby and be part of a club and be your amazing, wonderful, creative self. And don't be scared to just show up in your own unique way. Perhaps you want to start making your own clothes. Perhaps you're going to start making clothes out of recycled rubbish. I don't know. And, the results of that, of that clothes making could be something really inspiring and like kind of on a catwalk kind of thing, because it's just so far ahead of its time. And using social media, using technology to really have fun. Perhaps you join, your very first netball team that is fully, everybody else is a robot apart from you. And perhaps, to Aquarius rising, anything is possible. That might be really inspiring to you. So stay aware to what is unique and exciting for you and creative. And, in terms of like your children, this could be a period of time where they are really kind of learning a lot, receiving a lot of unique insights and sharing those perhaps with you. And yeah, they always say that children are our greatest teachers. And I think for Aquarius risings, this will be particularly pertinent for you over the next 7 years, that, your children will be receiving a lot of divine insights and sharing them with you, to the point where your whole life could feel transformed just from one conversation that you have with your child. So that is it for today. That is the Uranus and Gemini horoscopes. We have made it. I'm so pleased, and I'm going to go and get my kids now from school. But thank you so much for watching. Again, if you'd like to book a reading, head to freyastrology.com, where I'm doing birth chart readings, astrology readings, and also now intuitive readings as well. So if you enjoyed the card pulls today, then get in touch, because if you get in touch on Instagram, because I don't have them listed on the website yet, get in touch on Instagram, send me a message, and we can book you in for one of those intuitive readings. They're a nice, affordable way to connect with the energies, and I do blend the intuitive energies with your birth chart information as well to kind of give it that extra layer of personability. Is that right? I don't know. Is that a word? We're back to the dictionary thing again. I'm going to go. It was lovely to see you all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.